Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another set of corru.observer songs. I didn't think I would see more of these, but apparently Jazz and my executive producers wants me to listen to The Bureau and Ambition back to back, obviously in that order. So I've been given the little bit of clue that this is human themed, so they're going to be different than the sound font of the other songs I've heard. So I don't know entirely what that means, given I don't know corru.observer other than the few songs I have heard on the channel, but I am always willing to hear more because, damn, if they haven't been super interesting so far, I imagine these will be as well. So without further ado, let's go! I think my big question right now is how different, you know? Okay. All right. You never know where things are gonna go, you know? Oh, that is different. The generally different energy as a whole. It definitely has like the liminal space music sort of vibe to it. It's those detuned swells every time. God, the sound design of these, again, that hasn't gotten like changed in its approach. What they're doing with it, sure, but the quality of it, ooh. Still up there with all the others I've heard. I love that, like, stretched out bass line there. Kind of thinning it out as it gets louder. Okay, so I didn't realize this was going to be more atmospheric. I love that. It just means that I'm not going to talk so much about the music theory behind it and more about the sound design stuff that it's doing. So sound design wise, these are doing everything they should be doing to create this very bitter, weird sort of liminal atmosphere like I was mentioning. It very much has that sound because there's so many drones going on constantly. Those are something that I think everybody hears and they process and they realize, but they don't know why things are happening the way they are, and it's largely just frequencies crossing over each other that our ears as humans aren't really ready to hear. It's the same thing that happens when you're like sitting alone in a room and you hear something way off in the distance and your mind kind of starts to wander. That's like forcing the feeling. This is like forcing the feeling. Like, that's more natural. That's like, okay, what is making that sound? Can I like place an image to whatever that is off in the distance, even if it does sound vaguely human or kind of familiar? You just need that second to figure it out, so your brain starts processing through however many things it needs in order to land on the proper answer. And for this, there isn't one because it's forcing you through that process. Your brain starts immediately hearing these frequencies and you're like, there has to be like an organic answer to that, right? There must be. It's noise. I hear sound all the time, and your brain starts to get kind of confused and cross wires. And that's why like doing things like this with these drones kind of crossing each other and kind of bumping frequencies as they like scrape scrape by each other, that gets in your ears and makes you go, what the hell am I hearing? But then also exaggerating that further by having the constant different sounds going on in the stereoscope of your ears. You're like, oh, it's over here, now it's over here. And that's constantly sliding between, as well as just the overall drone is kind of just sitting in this ethereal blob above your head. And you're just like, what am I hearing? What is this? I feel so unsettled, you know? That's the design. That's what the sound design is doing. And I love when people nail that. And Corru nailed the fuck out of that. So many people try to do this sort of thing and they end up just kind of making annoying noise. And it's like, okay, I guess that's a little unsettling because you like, oh, it's a little detuned, too spooky, you know? Like there's a difference between this and then like somebody who's trying really hard to make their next like itch.io game and be like, oh, it's a horror game, it was scary. And they're like, to be fair, they're trying to do stuff like this and they're trying to emulate this sort of approach, but this is the proper way to do this. This is how you make that sort of skin crawling sort of sensation. It didn't really do that to me, but that's because I know what I'm hearing, and it is unsettling to a lot of people, but just somebody who's been desensitized to it like myself, it takes a lot of that. You need to like really crank into that disturbing quality. There are frequencies that are basically naturally avoidant for humans. Like we hear certain things that make our minds race in ways that shouldn't. And while this song doesn't have that, there are frequency ranges that just make the human brain kind of paranoid naturally. It's not something that we expect, but also it's like there's something from way back in the evolutionary line that we know, that we've heard. I'm sure some of you probably have heard of the whole theory of like, why do we have the uncanny valley? Why does that exist? Is it because we were afraid of something that was close to humans but not quite yet? And is that like locked in our DNA? And while I'm not 100% on that, I think it's an interesting theory. I think that the sound factor of it kind of locks itself in a similar window of like, that's intriguing. Why are we afraid of these sounds and frequencies? Why do they hit our paranoia? Why do they land in our brain and make us go, hell the fuck no? You know, similar to looking into the ocean and going, nope, you know, just whatever fear you may have, that is a part of it. And I feel like that's just how the human brain works. But that's exactly why these songs will, for some people, hit way worse and harder than it will for others, and there are certain frequencies that'll trigger that differently for each person. Point being, holy app session aside, this is just very well done atmospheric drone, and it nails all of those little fine-tuned sort of approaches in order to make it feel kind of more as a bulk interesting while also being kind of disturbing, but not to the point of like, I am legitimately afraid for my life sitting here listening to it. It just unsettles you enough. And that's like the perfect middle ground to hit, and they nailed that here. I don't know what I'm about to listen to next, but if it's anything like this or even borrows some of the ideas off of this, I can only imagine it's going to be fantastic. Okay, so we're already kind of borrowing some of those drones. They're a lot more thinned out, kind of thrown into the background. Still has the detuning and everything. Ooh. Okay, a little bit more structure there. A little bit more melodic. That's different. Ooh. Oh. A lot more structure. Okay, we're already at a point where this is very different. It's borrowing from the same ideas, but it's evolving it further. Still including those weird I love the use of this like theremin sort of sound, because that's a traditionally like spooky, weird sort of tone. That sounds more like an automaton actually, but similar idea. Those simple synths with the ability to slide smoothly between. Great for the weirdness, you know, the odd vibe. And now we're just gonna get a little bit of... Yep, a little bit of static, a little bit of general atmosphere there at the end. Okay, like I said, similar approach in the very beginning, but it did change quite a bit that makes it a completely different approach. I'm sure that sentiment almost sounded kind of hypocritical, like, oh, it's the exact same thing, but different. It's different, it's entirely different, but it's the same. That comes from a very specific place where, like, we did start in a very similar energy, but then it added structure, and that changed everything. The first song did have its general structure. It's not like it was without a beat, a rhythm, you know, etc. There is something to grab a hold on there, but this one had an actual drum beat, like a backing beat that changes everything about the song, and we go from this weird atmospheric droning kind of floating around in kind of the ambiguous concept of space, and now we have a floor to stand on. That's what the drums are, that's what a rhythm section is. So that changes how this song forefronts itself in our minds, and now we have something to grab a hold of. Immediately it feels more comfortable when there is a consistent backbeat. That's again just part of the human condition, part of our psychosis is just understanding that and feeling it out and going, why does this make sense? Why does this feel more comfortable? Because there's something consistent there. There's something that feels like there's an actual ground you can stand on and gather your thoughts, because there's something being wrapped around all that noise, and that's the beat. They call rhythm the bones of a band for a reason. They call it the backbone for a reason, because it is. If you don't have that, things get a little bit more crazy and a little bit harder to decipher for the brain. We need that consistency. Our brains crave that. So this song had that, and we got this different approach to all of this atmosphere by having that background in there. There was still all this stuff floating around, and when they included that like automaton theremin sort of sound, that was entirely different. Now we have something that's floating up here, but we still have that solid ground to stand on. It's just a different approach to having this atmospheric stuff going on. But what that ground does, what that floor does for us, is allow us to start thinking more critically of the scenario. It allows us to psychologically start asking questions, because we're no longer afraid of what's coming next or where we're going to be. It's more of, okay, I have the information, I'm allowed to be here. Now give me more so I can start asking more questions and getting those answers. Perfect for the type of relationship these two are having. I'm not sure what the story is between these two or how exactly they're connected, but I would not be shocked if the point is to kind of ground you after that experience, if it was something like dealing with a character, a creature, a concept that did not have any of that and was basically leaving you high and dry, just guessing at whatever the fuck that could be or how the fuck to handle that scenario. And now you have kind of more of an idea. Now you have some more information. And that's where it feels like there's more answers, and now you're allowed to ask more, because now that you have that floor of the rhythm, you have that backbone, you just feel more comfortable as a whole. It sounds like it's stupid simple, because it kind of is, but it's, again, these sorts of applications of things that I don't, whether or not the Corru composer decided to actually do this on purpose, or if it was just like, oh, that beat sounds cool, I'm going to throw it in here, neat sample. Regardless, it works like this. It starts you with this gigantic, confusing atmosphere that's constantly kind of grating against your brain and making you second guess yourself, to this one that feels a lot more like you have those answers and you're able to continue on a little bit more normally than you would have before. And everything else kind of around it, as far as the atmosphere, was very much the same, even ending in the static to kind of unsettle you again because the beat went away. So it started making you think, ooh, there could be something else here. What's around the corner? Now there is nothing to hold on to, and that static could mean anything is coming up next, if anything. So that's where we are. The psychology of corru.observer's music is kind of fascinating to me because, like I mentioned, I have listened to a few of their songs before, and each time I'm either unsettled or blissfully appreciative of how they're handling that general atmosphere they're going for, and I'm able to apply what I'm feeling fairly accurately according to people who have commented on it at very least. So that's great. That's a great sign for the composer that they are doing exactly what they plan to do. Like, the goal has been set and they've hit it, you know, just like I mentioned in the last one. That's how you handle that weird atmosphere and not letting people get too comfortable, by not allowing them any sort of backbone. But then this one allows for that sort of backbone, allows for that sort of structure, and allows the listener to start thinking more critically about the scenario and try finding more answers compared to the other one. I'm sure some of this probably came off pretty yappy and just kind of me going in circles, which does happen a lot when these songs are so generally like subjective in how they're supposed to be hitting your brain. It's very ambiguous in general, so it's hard to qualify exactly what the goal is of the composer, but hopefully I'm at least in the ballpark like I was for a few of the other ones. But either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much to Jazz for putting these into the executive producers. I love these songs just because of how interesting they are to hear. They always get my brain racing a little bit too much, but it's also just very nice to talk about sound design and not talk so much about music theory all the time, because while that is really fun, sometimes it's cool to just break things down in a different light and think about it in that different lens. So again, yapping here. Thank you all so very much for watching. If you enjoyed this and you want me to get to something else, by all means, drop in the comments below and I will do my best as always to get to those. Or if you want to guarantee something, much like Jazz did for this one, you can go to my Patreon, and if the tier is open, you can guarantee a song out of me. Doesn't matter who it's by, what it's from, if it's good or bad, none of that matters. That's why it's a guarantee. But if you don't want to do any of that, maybe just want to follow me and support me for more stuff coming in the future, you know how to do all that, and I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye!